This is part 2 of the discussion over the poisoning of our public conservation lands on the Coromandel Peninsula. Moihau Mountain is ringed by properties that oppose the use of aerial Tianeti poisoning. There is the Waiaro Sanctuary, the Ward Farms, Three Stone Bay Farm, are all opposed to aerial poisoning. The decision by Department of Conservation to poison the mountain undermines the work of the peninsula's organic growers, its permaculturalists, its biodynamic farmers, its organic growers, and brings the government into conflict with the community. When we first began our opposition to the poisoning of Moihau in 2013, we were working under the Resource Management Act, which we regarded as a fairly democratic process. So I'll describe that process. Any activity that would affect the community or the environment or the ecosystems would be notified by the territorial authority, department, the Waikato Regional Council in our case, as local government. And the public would be provided with the proposal for the activity. Then the public was invited to make written submissions on this notified application. The council convened a panel of commissioners where the public could present in their own words their concerns about the proposed project. The commissioners would hear the public and reach a decision on whether or not Waikato Regional Council should grant permission for the activity. Now, those intrepid members of the public who opposed the Commissioner's decision could then lodge an appeal with the Environment Court, I think for the sum of $155. And then they could phrase their concerns within the terms of the Resource Management Act and present their case to a judge. However, when we came to oppose the poisoning of Moihau and Papakai public conservation forests in 2017, we discovered that without debate with us, government had shifted the process out of the Resource Management Act 1991 into the Hazardous Substances Act 1996, which is known as HAZNO. Now, this is the new process under HAZNO Act. First of all, Department of Conservation published an advertisement in the local Hauraki Herald announcing that it had decided, without public consultation, to use aerial Tianeti poisoning as its method of predator control for the Moihau and Papakai forests. There had been no discussion with the community as to whether predator control was desired by us, and to our great consternation, we had local government, community board and local government resolutions opposing the use of aerial Tianeti and supporting hunting and trapping. In the following months after that advertisement appeared in the Hauraki Herald, we became concerned that we were not being consulted. So the members of the community decided that their course of action would be to write to Environmental Protection Authority as the administrator of the HAZNO Act. So John Watson wrote to Waikato District Health Board, whose public health officer is the appointed agent for EPA and is called, has no enforcement officer. He's the public health officer. And John Watson expressed his concern that the 1080 drop on Papakai would be right on his doorstep, and that dust, toxic dust from the operation, would land on his roof and his vegetable gardens and affect his water supply and his health. And after several letters, several attempts by John Watson to have his concerns addressed, he received a letter from Ms. Pedueli, who is Manager of Public Health at Waikato District Health Board, and she said to Mr. Watson, "Please take note that you will not receive any further correspondence or response from us on this matter." So it was shocking for us to understand that the door was closed on the public having its say under this new regime under the Has No Act. So Manu Waiata also wrote to Environmental Protection Authority and to the Director General of Health and to the Waikato District Health Board, and we stated Aerial 1080 operations do not comply with the Communications Guideline 2009, the Health Act 1956, the Hazardous Substances and New Organisms Act 1996, the Treaty of Waitangi Act 1975, and the Environmental Protection Authority Act 2011. And eventually, we too received a response from Malcolm Kerr, Senior Advisor at EPA, who said at the end of his letter to Manu Waiata, "We have no further information to provide to you." So again, the door was closed on the public having its say. So the use of 1080 without the public having its say has brought the community into conflict with the government. And it has brought about a shift from democratic process to authoritarian decision-making within a government that declares itself to be a parliamentary democracy. So this is of great concern within our community. What has happened to democratic process and why are we losing it? Now, yet another aspect of this shift out of democratic process is the adjustment that has had to be made by amending New Zealand statutes. And foremost amongst these is an amendment to the Animal Welfare Act, which has as its leading purpose and principle to recognise that animals are sentient beings, which means they must be treated with compassion. Now, the poisons used by New Zealand government for predator control are synthetic. Death is prolonged and excruciatingly agonizing as the organs in the body are destroyed. And people who have seen a dog die of 1080 say the trauma will remain with them for the rest of their lives. Now, this means you cannot use the synthetic poisons under the Animal Welfare Act. However, I think it was in 2015, the government made an amendment to the Animal Welfare Act, again without public consultation, which exempts any animal gazetted as a pest from the protection of the Act. So I'm now asking the question, why is New Zealand government deriding its own legislation? For what reason would a democratic government do something so appalling in public view?